Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to our program Vision Talk. This is our series of views and analysis and discussions, and they are going on the current coronavirus crisis. Today we'll discuss on another dimension of these issues that that it's getting more and more clear and evidential with clear statements coming on media from Europeans and from US that they just don't want to deal with China, and they are blaming China for this virus. Some blame their habits of eating weird animals like bats, and some are blaming them for creating this bioweapon. But whatever blame they're putting on China, the practical action which they have already started to take against China is the economic blockade of China. To take a deep dive into this reality of trade war with China around Corona, we are again talking on a call with the brother Syed Arif Rizvi. He's joining us from UK, and to answer some very specific questions on this Corona-China trade war. Welcome to our program Vision Talk show once again. We pray for the well-being of all, and inshallah we hope you're also doing well, Syed.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Faisal. I hope all brothers and sisters over there are doing fine and they are safe and secure, inshallah, under the mercy and grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, so our first question to you today is that how do you see this economic restructuring, whether it's intentional or organic? How do you see this taking place in the world?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As we all know that, coronavirus by itself is a virus with a very low fatality rate. If you look over population, it's in denominations, and even if you look over the cases, the average fatality rate is 3%. But the panic which this virus has created across the world is so high that it has stranded the world, and the entire world has come into lockdown. And the first impact with all these shutdowns and lockdowns and social distancing and grounding of airlines and travel industry can be very easily and felt at the individual level also on the economy. For laborers and workers and cab drivers and self-employed services personnel, to small scale and medium big industries, and even big businesses like airlines are all seeing an impact, and we can see layoffs and job cuts and deferred salaries and all these things happening across the world. On the other hand, it is also seen that the countries in West have not taken timely measures to control this, and even now they are not taking proper measures for controlling the spread of this virus and to save life, and they're just emphasizing more and more on lockdowns and social distancing to keep people at home for more and more time, which would cause more casualties and maybe eventually lead to herd immunity, where people will get immunized to this virus and then this will be gone in some time. But the damage on the economy which is coming is very high. Now, this all makes it very apparent that there is a big economic restructuring coming up. If we just hold on over here, pause and rewind and go back 2 to 3 months back, the pre-corona crisis, we see in the number one position in the world was China in economy. China has become the world's economic power and was dominating the world. And 4 years back, when Trump came into power, his first agenda item and top of the list was to control the Chinese economic dominance. And in fact, he wanted to destroy the Chinese economy, and he started a trade war with China by taking several measures like levying high taxes on the goods coming over there, putting them under sanctions for dealing with Iran, and very heavy penalties on companies like ZTE and Huawei in billions of dollars, and even the CFO of Huawei was grounded in Canada, and all these things were done as a part of the China trade war. Now, China is the biggest supplier to various industries in the world, specifically FMCG, which is the fast-moving consumer goods which people use on daily basis. Even in textile, in the pharmaceutical industry, in industrial goods and technology goods like mobile phones and tablets, and even in industrial goods like steel, iron, and with the latest telecommunication technologies going up like 5G, Chinese telecom companies like Huawei have taken a big hit by bagging around $156 billion dollars of contracts over 90 plus countries in the world. So, the way the Chinese economy has been going fast and covering each and every possible industry over time under the leadership of Xi, it has become a threat for American dominance. So now the domains which are left for America, pre-corona crisis I'm talking about, and the Western world to have dominance on economy were as such diminishing day by day. Their strength, their strength still remained more on advanced IT technologies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook. These are the big names which are still Western, and China is not able to dominate in this domain. This clearly means that if you want to control China, you have to do two things. One, cut off the supply chain of China, and two, or cut off their demands. These are two things which primarily you need to do to control China over here. I hope you're getting my point over here, what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely get it. That because in order to choke China, you basically choke them from both ends. You choke their supply chains, and on the other hand, you try to cut down the demand of their products too, right?
Yes, that's what you do. So, if you see, uh, uh, what I mean to say is that Chinese are not able to produce now after the corona crisis the goods the way they were doing the pre-corona. So naturally the world would look for options and alternatives. Okay, but with
So
Chinese manpower so huge, yeah.
sorry to cut you off. So I just want to rephrase you. So what you mean to say is that if Chinese are not able to produce goods the way they have, like they were doing pre-corona, naturally the world would look for other options and alternatives. But because everyone knows that the Chinese manpower is so huge and it's actually relatively cheap, and their political system is such that it does not allow any local political civil unrest. It's very tight, and it's a big challenge to bring drastic changes in Chinese production, with no one looks like they can compete with the production capacity, and more on the cost of production, right? I think this is what your point is, right?
Yes, but with this corona crisis, coronavirus that has hit China, within a month, the Chinese production went down by 20% around 20th of February, by 25% around 20th of February, after 4 weeks of hit, which happened in Wuhan. And as the problem escalated, it was further coming down to below 50%. But after which, China recovered from the corona crisis, and 2 weeks back, they were again back at 80% of their production capacity. Now, right at this time, when Chinese economy is going up, again coming back to normal, what is happening over here is that right at this time, another factor kicks in. What's that? Another factor kicks in whereby the world goes into a lockdown and the demand start to come down straight away. So the second factor kicks in over here when you're not able to control the Chinese supply line. Now the demands are not there. So now even with China free from virus and running on almost full capacity to produce, there is no demand for goods in the world, specifically FMCG goods. So if you join the dots together, the Western countries and in Asia as well, like India and Africa, all retail outlets are shut down for non-essential goods. Very clearly, the governments are saying that all non-essential goods should be locked down. You should not be selling anything. So who is going to buy Chinese toys? Who is going to buy Chinese mobiles? Who is going to buy Chinese tablets, Chinese electrical goods? So the demand is totally out now. You see, even if China having factories ready to produce these things, there is no one in the world who is there who is willing to buy it. Okay? Because what people need now are just essential things like rice, flour, lentils, and tissue papers, and medical supplies. This is what.
That's true. So people are only after rice, flour, and lentils and tissue paper, like you said. But as we know that China is also a big supplier of medical supplies. So what about that business, which has gone up 100 times now?
Yes, you're right. But if you see the policy of certain countries in Europe, UK, and US, they're not allowing even these goods to come from China. 3 weeks back, when the issue started in US, there was a slogan which was raised by Trump that say American. When you want to buy pharmaceutical goods, you want to buy vitamins, you want to buy sanitizers, just say American, buy American, because 90% plus supplies were coming from China, which they wanted to block. All these countries in Europe and West, they are now blocking Chinese masks, Chinese sanitizers, ventilators, PPE kits, even at the cost of their people dying and suffering. You can see in UK, Europe, people are crying that we don't have ventilators, whereas China can give them ventilators for $1,000 ready for delivery. China can give 10 million masks per day easily, but there is a ban on buying Chinese essential goods also now, though not formally announced. But the importers, I'm also a businessman, so I know this. So the importers who are importing these goods are not ready to buy Chinese goods because they are afraid that the customs authority is going to block it and they are going to lose money. India has blocked more or less all imports from China by creating a threat that the coronavirus might come inside the containers coming from China. All these news which you see that corona can stay on metal objects for so many days, it can stay for 24 hours, it can stay for 48 hours. What is this all going on? This is because that when goods are coming in containers or specifically to air cargo, you should be worried about it. That no, 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 corona can come through this also. So the economic restructuring at the first level, which we see, is aimed at giving a big blow to Chinese economy to the level that it cripples and falls apart. And Trump's vision and agenda of winning over China in this trade war comes out to be true before he gets into the election again.
Okay, very well said. But Brother Arif, how long can this continue? Like the non-Chinese world cannot compete with China so easily. The production replication takes place in other parts of the world like India, Bangladesh, maybe Pakistan, and that too at the cost at which China does. Like, how can you mobilize the world to set up such big production, like mass production industries? That this does not look practical, maybe in short or mid terms. So what do you say that whatever they do now, they will have to, don't you think that they will have to revert back to China, like maybe in near future after this is all over?
Yeah, Brother Faisal, you're right. And that's why they don't want to do, and neither can they become an alternative to China so soon. So what do then? Something different. You change the social behavior. You don't need to just digitize industries now. You need to digitize people now. You need to digitize societies. You don't need to just create e-businesses. You need to create e-societies where people more and more come line and do things online. Why? Because technologies like artificial intelligence and virtual realities are all geared, IoT, are all done geared towards this. And social media has already moved socialization in the West from physical socialization to non-physical. But these changes need to come in the East only, because China has also said some time back, when US was threatening them a lot, that the Chinese, I think the economic minister or the commerce minister said that very clearly, that West is not the end of the world for us. We'll work in the East. So these changes should come in the East also now. Then this will boost the digital industries. Like today, if you call certain industries, most of the suppliers, if you call, they say we have cut down jobs, we don't have people to answer the calls. But if you call those companies in US and UK and Europe who are providing digital meeting services, digital conference services like WebEx and Zoom and Livestream and OneStream and these kind of people, you see their businesses are booming. You do an online chat with them, your number will be 100 plus in the queue to get answers. So it's moving in that direction. Digital economy, if it booms, the game goes in the hand of West and not China. China's strength is in physical goods production. Why will the world need new mobile phones, models with high resolution cameras when they don't go out to travel that much? They don't need to go, they don't move out so frequently. They don't need to take selfies and all these things. When their lives are confined to homes and limited socialization, many demands for non-essential goods go down. I'll ask you a question. If you're sitting at home in the lockdown since last 1 week in Pakistan, do you think if this lockdown goes on for a few months, you will even feel the need to buy clothes? You will even feel the need to buy suits which come from China. Many things in your life just cut down. You don't need, which are coming from China. Do you need many mobile accessories? You need power banks because you're not going out only sitting in home where there is power supply. So this is the behavioral change which is going to impact the Chinese supply line because demands won't be there.
That is true, Arif. Like you said, that this is all moving towards like a virtual industry, and China is more product-oriented industry. But still, there are many industries like cars and like the travel, which were like with the Western dominance. So aren't they like damaging themselves as well?
Yeah, there are 2 points over here. If you talk about industries like car and travel, again, it's more European than American. More American cars are more for America. But anyhow, if even if you consider this as something a valid point over here, which is a valid point, you're right. But what I mentioned till now is that this is economic restructuring. It just does not comes with cutting off supplies and lowering demands and bringing industrial changes. You also need to do several other things, like totally killing certain industries which are highly labor oriented. And for that, you need to do depopulation. You need to cut down the burden on health services from elderly people in the West. Where they're taking the world towards now with these is what I call it as social experiment. What is being done now is a social experiment which comprises of behavioral changes, social and ethnic cleansing, which results into economic restructuring and many other political gains which they can achieve with the spreading of this virus, like the money and the efforts which US has been putting in Syria, in Yemen and all these things. They have very dangerous and dreadful plans which are coming up last 2 days in news that the Middle East would be severely affected with coronavirus, specifically in places like Syria and Lebanon and all these places. So all these things are there in the pipeline for their plans in this social experiment which is going on. As I said, this is an experiment because something like this at a global level has never been done in the past. But they're heading it towards that point of one world order, where few people will dominate the world, and the world also has to be cut down by 2/3 of its population, and then all this works. This restructuring engine has several parts which have to work together, several components, and if they don't work together, it will fail. Hence, you see how the developing countries are also roped in, like India, Pakistan, even Bangladesh is now coming into it, gradually into it, are taking these, and these developing countries are also taking some other advantages on the same line. Like in India, there is now a game going on for depopulation of Muslims, Muslim cleansing. That's what could be done under Corona also. So we have to wait and see for at least 6 months how this social experimenting works. That's the reason to secure themselves from social unrest and civil crisis and social crisis. Western countries are ensuring that they give wages to their people so that they can sit at home, take their salaries, only buy essential goods, no demand from Chinese products, and just wait for them to change the world if they are able to do, inshallah, which they will not be able to do, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power is above everything. Innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir.
Thank you very much, Arif. That was a very good overview and how things could change in very near future. And not to mention, we pray to our Almighty Lord, who, as divine customs, has plans more powerful than the evil minds. And He will, inshallah, we hope and pray that He will trap them in their own deception, in their own nets, and again world would become a place worth living. We request our brothers, our viewers, to stay tuned as we are trying our best to keep bringing you more analysis and analysts and views from our panel speakers across the world. We want you all to look at this issue of corona, not just from health perspective, but also what impact it is having on our lives, like on our social lives and in future, so that we as mu'mineen, as believers, we can prepare. Like knowledge is power. We need to know every single angle of this. And the health angle is just one angle. So as believers, we need to prepare ourselves And like as mentioned in traditions, that a believer should always be ahead of time. So please stay tuned for our next edition. We hope that you benefited from this program. We'll see you inshallah in our next program. Until then, Allah Hafiz.